now time for Bradford and Brooks, a civil discourse about civil affairs in Bardstown, Kentucky, and around the world. Please welcome your host for Bradford and Brooks, Margie Bradford and Jim Brooks. Now, get ready to enjoy a community forum to encourage citizen participation in the political process by the thoughtful discussion of political and civil issues.
All right, we're back with Bradford and Brooks. Very special edition of Bradford and Brooks, a Friday edition, which is fairly rare, but during the weeks before any election, Margie and I do our shows, our interviews with candidates, and so we're usually scrambling to get shows in either on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or all three at times.
Right, and this is our special one this week. Well, actually, we've had two specials this week.
That's right, Monday and today. And during the break, we switched candidates, and we're now joined by Jim Beery, who's the Republican candidate for Nelson County Jailer. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, good morning.
Good to have you on. Glad you could be here today.
Listen, I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Well, Jim, tell our listeners a little bit about Jim Beery.
Well, you know something, you got my name down. You probably don't know that I do have 4 perfect children. They're absolutely perfect. And I have 14 grandbabies.
Wow.
Oh, boy.
And the nice thing about it.
You are a busy papa.
Yes, a very broke papa. But that is okay. Mm-hmm. These children are good-looking, moral, intelligent, and I can't take credit for any of that as much as I wish that I could. But they're wonderful. Another thing about me is that I'm a businessman. When I got out of the military, I went to work for Southland Corporation, and that is 7-Eleven. And the stores that I managed were stores that were in the inner city area. They were the most difficult of stores. And so I'm a businessman. And I believe that even helps qualify me because, tell you what, jail is a big business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know off the top of my head what the budget is, but I know, any sort of government entity, you've got a limited amount of funds.
That's right.
To deal with, and you have to, sometimes stretch that money to cover the expenses.
If I'm not mistaken, it comes to mind $1,692 is the actual expenditure, but then the actual budget was written for $2,100,000.
Right.
But there is some income that comes in.
Sure.
And at least I think that I'm right in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, the jail does get money from the state for other inmates coming in. They're not our inmates, so to speak. They're coming into the community.
That's correct. There's a certain amount of money for every day housed at Nelson County.
Jim, what do you think is the for you and for voters that you've talked to? What do you think is the major issue in this race?
It's very rare that I run across a voter that knows a whole lot about the jail. Mm-hmm. And usually it's a very short conversation. And voters should meet the candidates. But occasionally you'll run by a constituent or a voter that knows quite a bit, even had maybe a relative or a loved one housed at Nelson County, and they'll know a whole lot about it. The primary concern isn't the things that you'd think, but it's about how well the inmates are treated, what the condition of the jail is, whether or not there are actually drugs going on at the jail, things like this. Mm-hmm. And I think that there was some good and some bad press out there. Mm-hmm. And that certainly has rippled through our community. Mm-hmm.
Well, a large contributor to the overcrowding that we are currently seeing is with the drug addiction problem. And so that's going to draw a lot of citizens into knowing about the jail conditions because they have loved ones who have ended up there through a lack of a better place to go, and the way our system it works. People who have committed a crime by selling some of their stash, so to speak, to pay for their own addiction. And I think that with people coming into the jail and seeing the conditions and things, they realize, that well, hey, you just can't throw people in there and forget about them, and that there are things you need to do. What would be your suggestions or thoughts on how to deal with these addicts who are crowding the jail system but not getting treatment as they need?
Well, I think that you do need a communicator as a jailer. And aside from taking care of what DOC wants us to do on a daily basis, I do believe that we can reach out into the community. And rehab centers are a big business also.
Right. And
some of them are quite successful. In fact, I have with me a book that was written in 1939, the first edition, Alcoholics Anonymous. And this book, this is the fourth edition to it, is quite successful. But it all boils down to where if you have an inmate, and if you can impress on that inmate to self-evaluate, to see where they are at, whether that would be with drug abuse, their educational level, their skill level, their physical health level, and things like this.
Yeah.
Any kind of self-awareness wakes people up and motivates them. And I'm one of those strange people that believe that people can change. It may take you years to get to that change, but change can be affected in the twinkling of an eye. And you can go a different direction. It's just a matter of deciding that you are so unhappy, you are so bottled up, you've let your family down, you've let yourself down, you've let your community down. I'm going to go a different direction. Does that answer your question about what I think?
Yes, it does, about what you think about that, but what can we do about it?
What can we do about it? We can run a disciplined, structured environment. And people, there is some peer pressure also involved. If a person performs well, gets up early, gets dressed, stays out of the rack, spends some time in either devotion or reading, things like this, take note of that. Try to catch people doing something right instead of waiting for people to do something wrong. And so that's how I feel about it. And now, it's not efficient, okay? We're going to have to run a pretty tight ship here in order to get to that point where you can set out to catch people doing something right.
Well, Jim, I know that, of course, twice a month at Nelson Fiscal Court meetings, the jailer reports on the population of the jail, the number of people discharged, and the ones that are on intake. The jail was built for just 100 and some?
102, 103.
And regularly, they'll have 150.
160 this morning, or a little plus.
Right. That has to present some challenges to the jailer because it's probably not optimum living conditions for everybody.
No, it's not. And I've heard this numerous times. And that, Margie, also is something that I do hear about out on the campaign trail. You know something? Inmates, can you believe that they sometimes, figuratively speaking, shoot themselves in the foot? You can give them a new mat. You can give them a new set of bedding and things like this. And our current jailer has just ordered thousands of dollars worth of things, but it gets tore up. Now, why don't we go in there and do something about that, you might be thinking. Well, we do our best to do that, but we have so many people coming in and being discharged, and then there are security concerns, things like this. There are priorities that we have to set up. Now, I do believe in separating inmates if their bond is pretty much equal, I think that every cell has maybe some bad apples that might hurt it for everybody. And so I do believe in trying to separate that. And you know what? People take note. When that particular cell is getting more attention as far as education, education is probably one of the biggest things that change people's lives. I heard a stat, and I thought it was kind of funny, that, those that have a life of, let's say, being incarcerated, that go out and go back to college and pick up their master's degree, it is known that they never go back to jail. Now, I don't know about picking up a master's degree. That might be a little high. But how about if we just learn how to read, learn how to keep a checkbook? Let's start with some basics here. And we have some wonderful programs that come by the jail to help us do that. But you know what? It all depends on the individual wanting it bad enough.
Right. Well, Margie and I, of course, we've done numerous shows about the opioid crisis. And any sort of change in a person's direction, really that they must find that motivation for change from within. Whether they've reached a rock bottom and don't like where they're at in their lives, or there has to be some motivation, whether it's their family members or kids, grandkids. And I would assume that, pursuing some educational benefit would probably fall into, they have to see where that's going to help them. Or, and I can, that would, if you don't have anything else to do other than wait through your, it would seem that, if there's a program there to keep you busy and you can, you learn something as a benefit. Sure.
Absolutely. And you know what? It all starts with that first individual out of that 160 down there. Think of Roger Bannister. What, in 1953, he ran the first 4-minute mile?
Yeah.
And the next year, 6 or 7, maybe a dozen people ran it, and then the year after that. And what was the difference? Did mankind suddenly evolve into a better specimen that we got out there and ran? No. It was a belief factor. There's a lot of people that come into jail, and so there's that all-important word, hope. I intend, as a jailer, to give hope and to believe in people, because 9 out of 10 that we house at Nelson County Jail are good people. Now, everybody wonders, maybe he's not tough enough to be jailer down there. I don't believe that it's a real good idea. In fact, I think it's stupid to advertise just how tough you are. Because I can tell you right now, I've lived long enough that there are going to be some cowboys out there that want to find out just how tough I am.
Right.
Or something like this. I'm not going to brag about it. I'm tough enough. I've got a military background that, I got an awful lot of awards. That's all I'll say about that.
Go ahead, Margie.
No, you go ahead.
Are there any specific programs you would like to see either brought to the jail or, that you would encourage the development of for the jail? That, of course, an issue of always is cost.
That's right.
So everything has to be affordable. But are anything in particular that you would like to see happen?
Yes, there is. And, everybody mentions about space being paramount, and believe me, it is. But you know what? There's a whole lot of study time that it takes place at my kitchen table. Okay? Every single cell there has room for self-study. And those papers can be handed in and can be evaluated. And also that person can be coached, even if it is just being called outside that cell door and coached one-on-one, given some encouragement and some direction, and put back in the cell. It doesn't require that we build anything. It could be that we extend hours for visitation, and that we extend hours that we would take an educator to come in and utilize the library. I think that's the biggest number one thing right there.
Well, do you have anything like that now? I mean, is this something that you're doing differently, or something you're expanding on, or something that you're wanting to start?
I have spoken to a number of people, and these are people that come in currently. to hold classes for GED and things like this. And I understand there are even classes that go beyond high school that they would like to start offering. And the unfortunate thing about it is that our class size is determined by where a person is among that, let's say, what level they have accomplished. It's difficult. It's not like the 1 through or K through 12 type of single room schoolhouse type of thing. Generally, we have concerns of whether or not people get along and things like this. And so, you know, I don't know exactly how we'll approach it, but I believe that we can do better.
They can do
Yeah,
a
we
better
can do
job.
it. Yes. So I'm excited about that. And I do believe that that's right within the jailer's duties. And now, I can tell you, there's a lot of good things happening at Nelson County Jail, and I get asked a lot of questions about negative things. And but I can tell you right now, given the staff that we have right now, taking care of 160, just in the short period of time that I was there this morning, we checked in 2 more people, and we checked out at least 2 people then to go out on work release, which is another huge thing that we can do, and work with the judge and things like this, because that's important for self-worth
Sure.
and discipline and things like this. You got somebody that wants to go to work, put them to work, you know, type thing. So just within a couple hours, taking care of 160 people, checking in and checking every security, you know, not missing anything
Right.
when that person comes in. And so you can see that we're busy here. Gee, I don't know where the clock is. Oh, we got time?
Yeah, we're
good.
down to about 4 minutes.
Okay, great.
So,
great.
There's
I
been
do-
discussion in Nelson Fiscal Court about the need for a larger jail. And this is, of course, this is looking down the road a ways. And it seems like every jail that you look at is over capacity now.
That's right.
Is that just symptomatic of having a jail, you think, or can you build one that will be at that will hold and no more than it holds, or is that kind of wishful thinking? Just
That's wishful thinking, I'm afraid. If we had a 500-bed jail, guess what? We would have 600 and some people there right now,
okay.
because it is short everywhere. But I tell you what, we can get the reputation of doing more with what we've got right now. And now I know that this sounds terrible and everything. Let's see how we do with what we've got right now before we go ahead and decide to build anything new. And let's do some outreach to the community. Let's hire a communicator to come in, a communicator to come in, vote me in, and I'll go out and communicate with people. I'll do a newsletter occasionally, things like this. And so let's entice people that, hey, you know something? It's even mentioned in the Bible to visit those in prison, and that God takes note of that. So, we can do more with what we have right now without any great expenditures. But a new jail, just off the top of my head, is 10 years down the road. It ain't going to happen anytime soon.
right.
So.
Well, Jim, we're down to about the last 2 minutes. Any final words for our listening audience about their consideration of the candidate they wish to vote for jailer?
Yes, I appreciate that, and it's not necessarily for me, but I will tell you what. The jailer that hired me, Miss Fig, I can't say enough good about her. And sometimes it comes out the wrong way, but 49 years worth of service. I tell you what, 10 years down the road, if we ever do build a new jail here in Nelson County, I'd be interested in that name being used out in the detention center. And 49 years, and the first elected female jailer in the Commonwealth.
Is that right?
Yes, the first elected female jailer in the Commonwealth. And I can tell you right now, she's old school, but she is sharp as a tack.
Oh, yeah.
And she doesn't miss a trick. And now, there are other candidates out there, okay, for jailer, but they just happen not be on the ballot, okay? I intend to do a lot of training. I intend to train for the next jailer. I intend to cross-train at the jail, where we are never behind the 8 ball, losing a pillar like we are losing when we lose Dorcas Figg.
Right.
Okay, and there's some other very important, talented people there.
All right. Well, I know, and kudos to you, Jim, because you have never, on social media, you have praised Dorcas for the work she's done and basically dedication of her career and her life to managing the jail, for you deputy jailer, and moving forward. So she deserves the accolades because it can be a thankless job.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it has been here lately.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're out of time. Thanks for coming in, Jim.
Hey.
It's good to talk to you. We'll be back next
WBRT
Wednesday for
Bardstown,
another Bradford and
1320
Brooks.
AM,
Have a great week.
W246 AT Bardstown, 97.1 FM. And now, W235 DB Lebanon, 94.9 FM, Lebanon and Marion County.